I love your brand. I actually, and really importantly, one of our core values as Super Connector, or one of the things that we really pride ourselves on, is anytime we communicate with anybody, anyone that you talk to on our team, like their job, I want everyone to make the person they're talking to leave the conversation feeling better. And you guys are really in the business of promoting others. And so you're creating a movement, you're creating an experience. So every piece of your experience should be on brand with who you are. And I love communicating with you. And I know that my team has loved communicating with you. And I've seen the emails, and your video that you sent me yesterday was so personal. I've never gotten one like that from a podcast that I was about to do. And it made me feel so important.
Welcome back to the Take Two podcast. And this week, we are bringing you someone that, in our opinion, is basically a PR and branding extraordinaire. She's a former VH1 host and Broadway actress. Jen Gottlieb has gone on to become a world-renowned motivational speaker, content creator, and thought leader. She's also the co-founder of Super Connector Media, which is an award-winning online education, events, and training company that teaches business owners how to build profitable brands. You may have seen Jen featured in Forbes, Business Insider, Shape, Women's Health, Well and Good, CBS, Good Morning America, PBS, or in many of the top podcasts in the world. But besides all her amazing accolades, we were particularly interested in her concept known as CIA. Through her experience, Jen has found that the most successful entrepreneurs have, are you ready for this? Credibility, influence, and authority as three of the top attributes driving their success. Rickis and I discussed this quite a bit following our conversation with Jen, and we wanted to have a bit of dialogue around her take on the CIA and why that is important for everyone of all ages, in all industries, and of any position.
Yeah, that's so important to think about brand, and especially individual brand, Brooke. Someone recently asked me a question: what would I tell a younger version of myself today? And one of the things I definitely will tell myself is, from a very early age, you've got to spend a lot of time thinking and debating what you are inspired by and what moves you as a person. And then secondly, a younger version of myself, I would tell them to really start focusing on your personal brand. Back when I was a young engineer in a big corporate world, it didn't really matter. But today, I tell you, it is so different. It is so different because there are so many opportunities to create a brand, but also to absolutely destroy a brand. And that credibility and the influence that you want to create, I think it's so important to understand what it is you want to do, and then to go out and to build a brand every single day.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is building the brand every single day. So often I think people will look at something that says the word branding, whether it be in a podcast title or in an article on LinkedIn, and suddenly it's like your natural way of thinking a brand is about colors and beautiful pictures and fonts and Pinterest boards. That's not just it. That it might be one element of your brand and not of everybody's. But there's so much greater than that. It's about the experience that you created. And it's funny because you just said, Rick, is how, that wasn't as important when you were a young engineer and working underground. It's funny. I actually would argue the opposite. I think it just potentially you were not necessarily looking at and focusing on your brand every day, but you were protecting your reputation. You were standing by a certain message or value that you had in the world. And for myself, growing up we come from very different generations. It was all about MySpace and getting, the certain pictures and your 4 squares, your 8 squares to look a certain way. And then it transitioned over to Facebook and Instagram. And it was about that brand experience that you put out there in the world through images. And I think with access to social media and different media platforms and technology, there's so much opportunity to really scale your brand and get your message out to mainstream.
Yeah, totally. And one of the great takeaways from the conversation with Jen for me was that a very effective way of building your brand every single day is to support others in building their brands. So go out there, create your brand, support others, and they will support you.
Enjoy today's episode with Jen Gottlieb. It is action-packed, and there are so many tangible takeaways for anybody looking to get their brand out into the world, to scale it, or to bring their message to mainstream. Let's take 2.
It's so funny, Jen, because you have been on my radar since like 2021. I shared with you before I first found out about you when I was doing a launch with Pete Vargas, and I was really intrigued. I was like, who is this person? Look at this amazing brand. I love the term super connector. So I was just blown away. And then I realized, oh shit, actually she's been on my radar like way longer. And I connected the dots because I'm like a 90s child, so VH1 was really big for me. So I'd actually love to open up today's podcast by kind of unpacking this a bit. You got known as the hot chick. You also had this reputation for being like a heavy metals girl. And of course, Miss Box of Junk. So clearly there's this role that you played, right, Jen? And it wasn't who you were. That's one of the things I think I've heard in common themes and podcasts that I've listened to that you've been on. It's not who you were, but it still created a perception. How is it that you were able to reinvent yourself, shift public perception of who you are? There's so many industries around the world that struggle with public perception. So I'd love if you could talk into that shift that happened for yourself.
Well, the shift really happened by accident. And my favorite quote is sometimes shit has to happen so the shift can happen. And I had to have a really big breakdown before I got that breakthrough. Because like you said, I was on a heavy metal show. So for the listeners that have no idea what this was, I was an actress back in the day. That's why I moved to New York when I was 20 years old and I pursued my acting career. And I ended up doing a Broadway national tour all over the country. And then when I came home from that tour, I was auditioning like a good actress would do. Like you go, you audition, and I got this incredible gig on a show on VH1. At that time, I was literally like what you just said. I was the quote unquote hot chick. My job was to carry out this box of junk. When the studio audience member won a prize, they would reach their hand inside my box. Yes, it was a very degrading situation. And they would pull out like a beer koozie or like a t-shirt and be like, yeah, I won. And I'd be like, yeah, good job. And that was it. Okay. And then I would walk off stage. And that was my job. But at that time, I was an actress and I would have taken any gig. And I wasn't getting paid a lot of money, but I was like, yes, I have this job on this real TV show. And before I knew it, that job started to become my identity, and the show got more popular and it became an hour-long show. And then I was going out to LA to film this show all the time at Sony Universal Studios, and I had a bigger part on the show. And then before I knew it, I was like the quote unquote Vanna White of the heavy metal world. And the real me, the Jen you're talking to right now, is still the Jen that I don't like heavy metal music. Never liked heavy metal music. I was playing this version of myself that couldn't have been further from who I really was because I had this job. But the weird thing was I was an actress. And normally when you're an actress and you're playing a character, you take on the name of the character, you're reading lines, everybody knows you're playing a character. With this show, I was Jennifer. I was me. But I was playing a version of myself that wasn't me. So I was totally out of alignment. I had built this brand of this heavy metal rock and roll girl, but I didn't even know half the names of the rock stars I was interviewing. Literally, I was like pretending to know who they were. And the more that I slipped into this world of forgetting who I truly was and just trying to be what everybody else wanted me to be, what I thought that the public eye needed me to be in order for people to love me and like me, and what my whole job was built around, the more out of alignment I got in my life. And I was dating a guy it was a totally toxic relationship, and he was cheating on me, and I was in a severe depression. I was severely bulimic. I had a horrible eating disorder, and I was the most out of alignment that I'd ever been in my life, and I couldn't get back in. And I really believe that when you're not in alignment with who you truly are, and you're fighting up against yourself, and you're arguing with your own truth every single day, and you can't get back into alignment, the universe will come in and it'll smack you back in. And a lot of the times that will hurt, and it won't feel so good, right? The shit has to happen for the shift. So within a week's time, that fabulous guy that I thought that I was going to marry, this relationship that was great on paper, that was really a hot mess, I found out he was cheating on me with my friend, and my show got canceled, and he kicked me out of the apartment. We lived in this beautiful Upper West Side multi-million-dollar apartment. He's like, bye, get out. And I found myself no job, no guy, in a tiny little room with like 6 other actors with a window that faced a brick wall. And that was when I had to start over. And I remember looking out that window at that brick wall and thinking the only thought that could come into my mind was like, one day I'll know why this happened. Like one day. That was the hope that I was hanging on to. I was like, I don't know why the hell this is happening to me, but one day I will know. So at that moment, I was like, who am I? Who am I? I got to start being me. And I had to start taking the mask down. And that whole process was unbelievably uncomfortable and scary. And I didn't figure it out in one day. I didn't figure it out in 1 month. It was years of rebuilding myself, of diving into personal development, of learning how to reposition myself and learning how to build a brand that wasn't heavy metal girl, and learning how to pivot and position myself in a way that was really showing who I was. It was a big job up here with my mindset, and it was a big job when it came to branding and positioning and messaging. So along the way, I learned all of these tools, the mindset piece, the positioning piece, the messaging piece, the media piece, in order to build a brand that now I feel is truly in alignment with who I am. And now what I do to come full circle is I teach people how to do the same. And so now I'm talking to you and I'm like, oh, wow, now I know why it happened. I didn't then, and I had to wait a long time to figure out why that happened. But when you connect the dots looking backwards, it always makes sense. Always makes sense. You just have to kind of wait for those dots to connect on the other side.
It's so true. I want to go into the brand a bit, but before I do, I acknowledge you so much for sharing so openly about your struggles with bulimia and an eating disorder. I think it's such a common thing, especially in the entertainment sector. And, I appreciate you sharing that with our audience, because I do believe that there's this like ideal state that whether it be modeling or acting, we feel like we need to be inside of. I used to model, so I know this state really well. I'd love if maybe just for those listening that have gone through something similar, if you could just share that journey a bit, if you don't mind jumping into it, just because I know that there's so much value for people. It's how do you get out of it when you're so deep into that ideal state?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I need to say is that I'm nowhere near being an expert in eating disorders. So if you're someone that's struggling with something like this, you want to get professional help. So don't take my advice. Like Jen said this, I'm going to go do this. All I can share is my truth and what I dealt with. And I tell people I'm in therapy, get professional help. I'm not that professional help. But my experience was exactly what you just said. I was in this industry where my worth was really all based around my body and the way that I looked. And it really started very young for me. And we don't need to go back into my childhood, but my parents getting divorced and feeling like I was very out of control. And the only thing that I could control was the way that I looked. And the way that I looked was the way that I got attention and the way that I felt in control and the way that I felt like, oh, I'm valuable, I'm needed, I'm loved because people like the way I look. And it just slid down a very, very dangerous path. And then once I entered the entertainment world where I was auditioning and I was walking into rooms, basically waiting for someone to pick me and tell me I was good enough based upon the way that I looked for the most part. Everybody was talented, didn't really at the end of the day, most auditions, and you modeled, so you probably know, but even in acting, it's like, everybody's good. It's like, do you look the part? Does she? So I was going to rooms, I was like, am I good enough for you? Am I skinny enough for you? Am I pretty enough for you? Am I saying the right words for you? And I was just always waiting to get that validation. And so it went down a really bad place. And then once you're in that cycle of addiction, it becomes an addiction. And it was for a really long time in my life. And I'm really proud and happy to say that I'm on the other side of it now through a lot of therapy, through a lot of work, through a lot of like learning to love my body and exercise in ways that feel good. And all of my experience in, when I built a health business and a personal training business, all of that stuff, all of the dots that connected me to where I am today helped me through that process. But it's really prevalent now, more so than ever, with Instagram and social media and like seeing all of these filtered versions of women that aren't necessarily real. Or, I can only imagine what my life would be like if I was a teenager with social media now. It would be even harder. So my heart goes out to everybody that is struggling with this, because I know that it's something that not just women and men are struggling with right now. And it's important to really bring light to it. So I'm really glad you asked me the question. But again, if you're struggling, it's okay to acknowledge that and then go and get some professional help, which is exactly what I did.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing it. We have conversations about this all the time because we're avid cyclists. We love to cycle, and you just see it in so many different industries, right? So I appreciate you sharing and shedding lights. And I also, it's so clear for me, when somebody sits in front of you and you're like, they are so complete, like they really have done the work on themselves. They continue to do the work, continue to take those actions, and it just reflects in everything they are. That's like the experience that I'm getting from you right now, Jen. And it's a beautiful thing to see. So you talked about Super Connector. Tell me a bit about Super Connector, the work you're doing, type of folks that you're working with. And also, I obviously know just from doing research, I know that you started Super Connector with your now husband, which, I'd love for you to hit on that, because I think there's these like two camps, Jen, where you're like, there's people like, I will never work with my husband or wife. I'll never work with my loved ones. And then there's the other camp, which is like, I love them so much. I create my best when I'm with them. I trust this person. I'm able to be my best self. They challenge me. I feel like we fit in that ladder. And I would assume, since you guys started Super Connector and it's doing so well, you guys do too. So maybe you can just hop into that a bit for us.
Yeah. So Chris started the company. It wasn't Super Connector yet, but it was the bare bones of the company before we even started dating. And so he was doing these events that connected entrepreneurs to the media. So they were called Unfair Advantage Live, and he would teach entrepreneurs and business owners how to pitch the media so they could be featured in publications and on TV. And then he'd bring in a bunch of media people to mix and mingle with his guests. And I started dating Chris. And at that time, I had my personal training business, and I had my shit to shift moment. And I was building my business and becoming an entrepreneur. And I'm watching him and I'm like, this is cool. I kind of like this better than what I'm doing. And I kind of see like
opportunity.
Yeah, my vision is here. Like, whoa, you're on stage. So I didn't even know this existed. Like you could do events and help people in that way. And started going to events together. And I was just way more passionate about what he was doing. And it started to become very clear to both of us. This is before we were married, before we were engaged, that we were just dating. We were like, what if we came together and we made this something even bigger? Because we noticed that when Chris was helping these entrepreneurs get in the media, there was a really big thing that was holding them back. And it wasn't strategy, and it wasn't tactics, and it wasn't not knowing what to pitch. It was their mindset. It was their confidence. And I knew that I could come in there and teach confidence and teach them how to move through that fear of being seen. And so we started playing with that, and we started talking about it, and we went for a run, and all of our decisions are usually made on a walk or a run. And he's like, what would it take for you to, are you guys too, or a bike
ride? Yeah, totally. Yeah, we do cycles. It's like, that's our thing.
Yes. Oh, so you get
wine, I'll be honest. Wine also helps. But
oh yeah, wine, bikes together, maybe. But so he's like, what would it take for you to join me? And I was like, well, okay. So I dropped my business. I took a big risk, and we created Super Connector Media together. And what it is now, it's had a lot of iterations of itself. And what it's come to now is we do events, and we have all kinds of educational platforms, whether it be our high-level mastermind mentorship group, we do VIP mentorship, we have courses, we have programs, we do challenges, and we do mega in-person events for entrepreneurs, business owners, thought leaders, speakers, authors, anyone that wants to create a platform and a brand. And we teach them how to do that. And more importantly, like I said, we help them really see their fullest potential and then be seen as that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the idea of, or what you say about the visibility piece. You know, it's your accountability to make yourself visible. And you also talk about taking people through that scare, or the, you know, being worried about going out and being on stage and putting yourself out there. How do you do that? You know, what do you say to people? How do you coach people through that worry about? And I think a lot of us are kind of born with that scare of being in front of people. Yeah, the resistance of being in front of large groups of people. How do you do that?
Yeah, I think that the number one fear is public speaking. And I truly believe that it comes from a lot of different things, but I think one of the main reasons we get so scared before we speak to a big group is because we're all wrapped up in what are all these people going to think about me? What are they going to think about what I have to say? And we think about what it's about me. Like, am I going to say the right thing? Do I look the right way? Am I going to impact them in the right way? Oh my gosh, am I wearing the right outfit? What are they going to think? And I have to impress all these people in this room, and they're all looking at me. So the common factor there is you're worrying about yourself. When really at the end of the day, when you're giving a keynote talk or when you're presenting and you're talking about a topic, it's not about you. In fact, it's not about you at all. It's about the person that you're impacting, the person that you're helping, the person that's sitting in that audience, and you're going to change their life. If you're all wrapped up in you, yeah, you're going to be nervous. But if you focus on talking to one person. So I always, whenever I do a keynote speech, the thing that I do is I said to you, I was like, if I help one person today, I'm happy, but I'd rather help more. So I don't do that thing where I'm like, if I helped one person in this room, I'll be happy. No, help everybody in the room. I'm going to help everybody. Everybody's going to walk out of the room and they're going to be impacted. But for me, for my mindset, so I don't get nervous, I'm going to look and I'm going to pick one human in this room. I'm going to pick one. And I am just going to pretend that I'm only having coffee and having a conversation with that one person and giving that one person everything that they need to walk out of the room feeling impacted and moved. And if I can talk to my whole audience and make contact with different people, but envision that I'm only talking to one, and I'm just driving my point home to that one person and serving and providing value to that one person, I'm not worried about me anymore. It's not about me. I'm not nervous. I don't care about what I look like. I don't care about what I sound like. I'm just helping that one person. I'm at coffee with this person, and it is my job and my intention and my objective that that person leaves that room feeling better. And what happens as a result is I'm not as scared, and then everybody in the room feels like they're that one person. And that's my goal. If I can make everybody feel like they're the one person I'm talking to, then I've done my job.
I love that. Jen, I'd love to talk a bit about brand development further there. I've heard you talk on not only your own podcast, but other people's podcasts as well about creating credibility, influence, and authority in your brand and with your audience. Can you talk a little bit about that? What do you mean by those things? What should people be doing in the space of credibility, generating influence, and then authority?
Yeah, I like to call it, you have to become a CIA agent. And you have to be a CIA agent of your brand. So credibility is unbelievably important because credibility equals trust. So this really crazy thing that's happening right now on the internet where Joe Schmo, anybody can get on the internet and say that they're an expert, anyone. And it's kind of scary. Like anyone can get online and create an Instagram account that has never created a business in their life and say they're a business coach, they're a business expert, and they can start selling to people. But the good thing is that consumers, us, we're aware of that. And now we need a little bit more trust, more credibility before we hire somebody, which is a good thing for people that are legit. So the legit people need to work to create that credibility that can be seen so they can use that in order to be chosen amongst the big pool of people that are doing the same thing as them. So I'll give you a great example of how credibility works. And usually you get credibility by mainstream media placements, by being on a podcast of somebody that's very credible. It's basically borrowed trust. Let's say I'm looking to hire a doctor. Let's say that I'm looking to hire a doctor, okay, in a very specific niche. Like I'm looking for a doctor that specializes in women's health, okay, women's hormonal health. I mean, many women are probably looking for this. So I'm going to get referrals from my friends. All right, I'm going to get one great referral. I'm going to get another great referral. Okay, my friends referred me to these two different doctors. What's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to Google them. I'm going to go online and I'm going to search each doctor. And subconsciously, I'm looking for credibility markers because I could go to one website and it could be a fabulous doctor that my friend said, this is the best doctor on the planet. They're amazing. They took such great care of me. They're incredible. But if I go to their website and there's no credibility markers there, they haven't been featured in any magazines or anything, and there's no videos of them talking about what they do. They're not really on the internet that much. And then I go to this other one that my other friend referred to me, and they've been featured in Women's Health, in WebMD. There's videos of them on different podcasts talking about their expertise, and they're everywhere. Who am I going to choose? I'm going to trust the one with more credibility. So it's your responsibility to get those credibility markers if you are, in fact, an expert in your niche, so that the competition simply doesn't even exist, so that you're chosen. And also those credibility markers allow you to increase your prices. Because think about it, if someone that's been featured on the Today Show a whole bunch and Good Morning America, they're actually considered, just from perception, a lot more quote unquote valuable than somebody that hasn't been. Featured on Good Morning America, Dr. XYZ, right? Like they can say, oh, if you want to work with Dr. XYZ, because they, the one from Good Morning America, you're going to have to pay. And people will happily do that. And they could be just as good of a doctor as the other one. It could be the same talent, but just from perception, more people are going to pay more money for the person with the credibility because it's borrowed trust. People trust it.
That's very good.
Influence is similar. You want to be an influential, it's really important to have influence, but it's difficult to build influence on your own. Very difficult, especially in today's day and age with the algorithm and everything that's going on with social media. And like, is everybody seeing your posts? I don't know. So the best way to gain influence is to borrow it from other influential people or influential podcasts or influential magazines, pages online, whatever that is. So being featured on other people's platforms. And what you guys do is exactly that. You help influencers create more influence, and you are also a huge credibility marker. And essentially, you all are borrowing the influence of the people that you're bringing on your show as well. So it's a win-win situation. Influence isn't just built in a one-way track. Like I'm not just getting influence from you, you're also getting influence from me, and which is a beautiful thing. And we're not meant to do this alone. We're meant to help each other build each other's brands, and good brands can lift up other good brands. And that's how we make an even bigger impact. And then I'll get to the A really quick, the authority. So we just round it all out. Authority essentially equals power. And I like to really wrap this all up and tie it up with a bow with thinking about the CIA agent that's undercover. Okay. So if you envision like in a movie, there's a CIA agent or like an agent, a special agent, and they're undercover and they're just wearing regular clothes and they walk into a building and nobody has to listen to them. They have no authority. Nobody listens to them, right? Like they're just a regular person. If they said, sit down, they'd be like, why are you doing? Then all of a sudden they pull out their badge and they said, I'm so-and-so, I'm a cop, whatever, sit down, suddenly you sit down, right? And that's just their authority. So every thought leader needs to be able to flash their authority badge, which is their credibility markers, their influence, in order to have that authority to tell people to do things. If you don't have that badge, you're not flashing that badge, and you're not amplifying your media, you're not amplifying your trust building credibility markers, then you don't have authority. And if you don't have authority, why should anybody listen to you these days? They shouldn't. And you deserve to be listened to if you have a service, a story, or a product that helps people. So you need to create CIA.
I like the CIA. In terms of, I love all of that, but I particularly interested in the influence piece. The common thread that I hear amongst people is like, I need access. I need access to a community. I need access to resources, but resources more so from the context of like a network of individuals. What is your take or recommendation for people in terms of building your network so that you can get access to influential people? Because not everybody has that access. Not everybody can send that email. Not everybody can send a DM. You can, but a lot of people won't do it. And there is this fear that somebody won't respond. So what is your recommendation on building a network so that you can be influential and or building a network with influential people?
Yeah, it's one of the most important questions that you asked, because building your network is, I believe, the thing that's going to move the needle the most in your business. People make everything easier. Connections make everything easier. It really is all about people and connections. When you want to start building your brand and building that influence and credibility and everything, most of the publications that you're going to get featured on, everyone that's listening to this, is going to be from a relationship, from somebody that you know that knows somebody. Most of the people that are going to write blurbs for your book or put you on their stages is going to be somebody that you know or that you've networked with in your past. So the first thing is know that it takes time to build a network. You're not going to build it overnight. And that's like, okay, take the pressure off. You can just say, okay, I'm going to be working on this forever. Your network is something that you're always working on, you're always building. And the main number one component of building powerful relationships is giving without wanting anything in return, and constantly just providing value to people and figuring out how you can help people without asking them what they need help with. So what I do regularly now is I just think about all of my friends or people I want to connect with, or even people that I don't even know that are quite influential that I would one day like to have in my network. I think about, what does this person need right now? Do they have a book out? Do they have a podcast I can write? Can I write a review and screenshot it and send them the review that I wrote? Could I bulk buy books? What can I do to help them, and that they could use that value right now without me saying, hey, what do you need help with? And giving them a homework assignment, or just giving value. Maybe it's even just commenting on their posts, sharing their posts, putting them on my platform. Anybody can do that. And I say this really, I mean this, because there's people that I know consistently comment on my reels and on my posts. They comment thoughtful comments. They share my stuff regularly. And I didn't know who they were, but now they're on my radar. And they've been providing value to me for a really long time. If those people came and asked me for help, I would be way more apt to open that DM and listen to them and give them that law of reciprocity, that exchange, because they've been providing value to me for a long time in the way of like engaging with me, which is something that I need help with as someone that's building a platform. So think about how you can help people. And when you go to a networking event or you walk into a room and you're surrounded by people, because you got to get in the room, whether it's a virtual room or it's a real room, be in masterminds, be in programs, go to events, get yourself out there, invest in it, invest in being around people. But once you get there, instead of trying to be interesting, be interested. Ask a zillion questions, listen to people. People want to feel seen. If you can go into a conversation and just ask a zillion questions, that person is going to walk away from you and be like, I freaking love her. I freaking love him. That was the best conversation I've ever had in my life. And you didn't have to say anything. So it takes the pressure off of you from having to worry about what to say about yourself. And you just made someone feel amazing. And that's how you do it. And then you leave knowing, I know that person could use help with XYZ. I could connect them to this person and help them out. That person's never going to forget that. And the law of reciprocity is so unbelievably powerful that one day, maybe not immediately, but one day you will get that back in return. That value.
It's so good.
Yeah, no.
And it's easy to do.
It is easy to do. Yeah. I think about too, I look at your social media, Jen, what you're posting on LinkedIn, what you're posting on Instagram. And when you talk about this piece about constantly giving value without asking for anything in return, without any expectation of something in return, that's what I see on there. It's like you're just oozing with value towards people and for people. but with no expectation in return. It's so great to see that type of content, and it's consistent. I think those consistent measures of constantly putting that out there makes such a difference because your audience is growing. They're getting tremendous value from you. I don't see anything else that you'd want to be doing other than giving value to people, because you know that there will be a return of what you're giving out to the world.
For sure. Yeah. And whenever I'm scared I do this Instagram live now every day where I put on my makeup live on Instagram and I like do Q&A. It's become like this new thing that I do. And I never wanted to do this. Okay. My friend said to me, she did it. And she's like, there's a really great way to like provide value, and you're always doing this one thing, and you can connect with your audience and grow your brand and everything by just going live while you're getting ready for the day and do Q&A at the same time. And I'm like, are you crazy? I'm going to get on Instagram live in front of people with no makeup on and put my makeup on and multitask and answer questions at the same time. You're nuts. Because that's scary. That's vulnerable. That's really taking it all down. Right. So I sat on that idea for months, and I knew that I was like, I need to do that. I sat on it. I didn't want to do it. Finally, I did it with fear in the passenger seat of the car. I have these dare of the days that I do with myself. That's why my podcast is called I Dare You, because I'll give myself a dare. All right, Jenny, I dare you to go live and do your damn makeup on live and see what happens. And I did it once. And this is how confidence is built over time. You do it scared. And then when you get to the other side, you realize it wasn't that bad. And then the next time you do it, it's a lot easier than it was the first time. So I did it, and I got off. I was doing this live, and like I'm doing my makeup and I'm answering questions. I get off, and all these people just start saying in my DMs, "Thank you for that. That was so great. I just got amazing value from you. Thank you for sharing this with me. Thank you, thank you, thank you." And that made me feel so good. So providing value to people without asking for anything, not only does it help people and build brand and build audience and build connection and build a movement and an experience for people and make people feel good, but it also makes you feel good. And I was like, that feels really good. I don't even care what I look like anymore. I'm going to do that tomorrow because I really helped people. So now I do it every day. And this was something I never wanted to do. And I do it every day. And it's my way to provide value and to also show it's actually becoming like a really cool thing to show the process. And to, if I'm going to post all these videos of me on stage in glam, which is great, I think that your brand should show the highlight reel. That's what it's about. But it's also my responsibility to show people the realness. So that's my way of connecting with people and providing value in the way of, listen, don't compare yourself to my chapter 10 of my day where I've got lashes on. Okay. Know that this is where it starts, and know that this is like the realness. And then you can go watch my videos and know that. So I don't want any comparisonitis. So that's another way that I'm trying to provide value in my own way. And so what I'm saying is, the listener that's listening right now, there's so many different ways that you can provide value. And once you start doing it, it's going to start making you feel really good. And then you're going to want to do it more. And then you're going to get lots in return. So all these people that come to my lives every morning, now they're like, how can I work with you? How can I engage in your brand? When is your book coming in? How can I do this? How can I do that? And it's like, oh, just because I've been giving value.
Yeah, well, and definitely giving value, but I would also say there's like this humanness to the fact that, you're showing up without any makeup. It's so normal to expect a woman, especially, speaking industry, entertainment industry, modeling industry, to be totally glammed up, right? And you go out, it's like you said, your brand's beautiful. It reflects that. You see you on the stage. It's stunning. You want to look like that person. But then when this person shows up and they show up in their most raw form, super vulnerable, like you said, there's a realness, like a humanness to it. And I feel like you connect with people at a far more deeper level when you can show that humanness. I've even seen it in my own personal experience. We have this conversation. He's like, you don't always have to wear makeup. I'm like, no, but I like wearing makeup. I don't feel comfortable not wearing makeup. But then the experience when people relate to you of like, oh, she's just a human, right? Or she's just like me, or cool, like she's laid back. She doesn't need to be all glammed up. It's just totally different experience. And they relate to you when they're looking at your pictures, scrolling, saying, wow, she's so stunning. I want to be just like her. I want to look just like her. Right.
Yeah, totally. And I found through that, and if you want to, like, if anyone's listening, they're like, I want to build my brand, but I don't know how. When I started doing that, my Instagram following skyrocketed. I don't know if the algorithm liked it, if people were sharing it more. A lot of people are telling me, oh, my friend told me about you. I'm like, whoa, it's like a word of mouth thing. So it was a great strategy as well. I'm all about strategy and also giving value, and also the mindset for me, becoming more confident, showing me exactly who I am without the makeup on, and empowering other people to do the same. It was just a win-win-win-win, and a way to actually also incentivize people to be seen. And as I did that, I was like, oh, wow, I'm really being seen, and it actually feels good. And I think I'm helping other people do the same. And so that's part of my why.
Be sure to check out the show notes to see where you can follow and connect with Jen, including where you can pre-order Jen's upcoming book, Be Seen. Be Seen is an inspiring guide filled with step-by-step methods, personal anecdotes, and all the tools that you need to build your own personal brand. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a creative professional, or even just someone who wants to build a life that reflects your true self, Be Seen will help you unleash your full potential and finally be seen for the incredible, unique person that you are. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to leave us a review and tune in every other Tuesday for our latest release. And because we are always looking to elevate our brand as Take Two, I wanted to use the opportunity while we had Jen with us to ask her for any insights or constructive feedback that she has on how it is that we can elevate our brand. Here's what she had to say.
I love your brand. I actually, and really importantly, one of our core values as Super Connector, or one of the things that we really pride ourselves on, is anytime we communicate with anybody, anyone that you talk to on our team, like their job, I want everyone to make the person they're talking to leave the conversation feeling better. So it doesn't matter if you talk to me, my finance person, my assistant, my chief of staff, like whoever you talk to, I want you to be like, whoa, I feel so much better for talking to that person. That's brand. Believe it or not, right? Every single point of contact, you're creating an experience for people. And you guys are really in the business of promoting others and really like being that big platform for others, like that stage for other people to leverage, and you bring people up and you show the world these amazing humans. And so you're creating a movement, you're creating an experience. So every piece of your experience should be on brand with who you are. And I love communicating with you. And I know that my team has loved communicating with you. And I've seen the emails, and your video that you sent me yesterday was so personal. I've never gotten one like that from a podcast that I was about to do. And it made me feel so important and so seen. And so like, wow, this is like personal touch. Beautiful brand.